Hi guys, I'm Envy Lego Technic, and today is the second part of the building process of this little truck thingy with a 4-speed gearbox. Well, speaking of that gearbox, I have realized that it's actually not a 4-speed gearbox but a 3-speed. Let me explain why. So the first gear is just a 1-to-1 ratio. It passes through these two gears and then these two to the output. The second gear is a 3-to-5 ratio, so that means it passes from to these two gears, which are 3-to-5 ratio. So this one has 20 teeth, the other one has 12 teeth, which is not visible on camera. When you divide that, it is equal to 5-to-3 or 3-to-5, and then there is just one more 1-to-1 ratio, and that's a total of 3-to-5. And then comes our problem, because the third gear is also 3-to-5. It's just that it passes through 1-to-1 first, and then these two have the same gear ratio as these two gears. So that's our problem. There are three main ways that we can fix this. The first one would be to use these 24 tooth gears in the place of these blue ones. However, I only have one of these, so that solution is out. The other solution would be to just take out one of the clutch gears and turn this into a 3-speed gearbox, which is also out for obvious reasons. I really want to have a 4-speed gearbox in this. And the third solution, which is what we're going to use, is to, instead of this 3-to-5 ratio, have a 5-to-4 ratio, which we're gonna achieve by using one of these 10 gears, which have 20 teeth, together with one of these gray gears, which has 16 teeth. So when you divide that, it is equal to 5-to-4, which is a smaller ratio than this over here, so the speeds will be in a correct order and there is not going to be any repetition in gear ratios. Now the thing is, if you mesh these two gears, it's going to be offset by one stud, which we're going to fix by adding two 8-tooth gears on another axle, so that it's all nice and level. So yeah, that's basically the plan for now, and I hope it works out well. Well, after a little bit of work, this is what I came to. In general, I did not use the 8-tooth gears after all, because they generate a lot of friction and they're not very good for heavy-duty purposes. Now, this model is by no means made for heavy-duty applications, but you can see that there are so many gears in this thing that any uh, any excess friction is not very welcome, and excess friction is created by 8-tooth gears. So I used these bigger ones for a similar effect but with way less friction, so hopefully there's gonna be less load on the motor. This also means that the output is gonna have to be off center, but in my opinion that is a small price to pay. Except if the motor does not fit, in which case I will maybe try to use a gear like this. Actually no, that won't work. Yeah, it could work like that. Yeah, that's how I'm gonna use it, because otherwise the motor would not fit next to the links and the gears. in the differential. So that is what the gearbox looks like now. Now every speed of the gear is every gear speed is different, and you can also see how I never mind that, you did not see that. You can also see how I use the two perpendicular beams, L-shaped beams, to reinforce the transmission. One of them supports this, and this axle, and the other one supports these two, which are double supported by both of them, and it also supports this one through a longer axle. This is a little bit of a questionable building method, but we'll see how it handles in real life. I also hope that everything will fit in the frame. If it does not, we're doomed, and I will have to rebuild this again. Hopefully I don't have to do that, and wish me luck on that. Well, I have now installed the gearbox in the frame, and yeah, I tested it also um, without the front wheels. I just like held it to the ground and see what would happen. And at first there was some cracking over here, but then I fixed it with these white beams, which simply connect the L beam and this 7 stud beam together so that they cannot be separated as easily anymore, so the gears cannot crack. Now, another source of cracking, which I do not know how to fix, is this one. You can see that these gears are only reinforced from one side, and from the other they're just dangling around, which is a big issue. But I guess if this is a round going truck, I guess that's not gonna be too big of an issue. However, if I do think of some other way to fix it, then I'm definitely gonna implement it, because it's quite frustrating nonetheless. Uh, so yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Also, I have just discovered that, I mean, I haven't really discovered, I've just been a little bit ignorant, and I did not realize earlier that these gears actually like up gearing, so I'm gonna have to find some way to make the drivetrain a little bit slower on the rear axle so that we have enough torque for stuff. And that would be the progress report so far from this time lapse. You can see all the motors are mounted, and now I'm gonna work on fixing the rear axle and hopefully also starting the front one. Wish me luck. Well, now we're essentially at the same point. Remember when I said that I'm gonna make the front axle? Well, I lied because I spent that time modernizing the gearbox shifting mechanism and the mounting of the steering motor. So previously we had the gearbox motor mounted like that on the other side, and the steering motor used some bevel gears. It was a power functions medium motor and it was mounted like that. I noticed that there was a lot of empty space that was not used, so I redesigned everything to fit a bit more tightly. There's still quite a bit of empty space over here, but if I move the motor that one stud behind, then there would be a much less reliable way to secure it. So I think for now this solution is better. I still haven't really thought of a way to fix the rear axle tracking, but that's because I haven't really bothered with that issue that much. So maybe we'll want to fix it later on, maybe not. As I said before, this is a road going shop, so it doesn't really need to be really that much heavy duty, but it will be good to not crack as much. As for the placement of the steering motor uh, and the front axle, I decided to have a non-driven live axle suspension in the front, and I can use this axle here to motorize a fake engine that I'm gonna put somewhere in the front, and here I can also quite easily make a functional steering wheel with some gears and some effort. So we're gonna see if everything fits with an interior, and if it does, I'm gonna test it, and if it doesn't, then back to the drawing board. Wish me luck. The front axle is connected to the rest of the chassis now, although it's not that connected, only this little steering axle, that's the only thing that holds it, but the front axle is completely built, and that's where the links are gonna go, and I'm also gonna attach some more links, maybe a panhard rod if it's not stable enough, and in general this is how the wheelbase will look. On camera it looks a little bit short, but in real life it's a bit better. uh, I will also probably have to widen the bodywork a bit, because otherwise the steering motor, that is a gearbox motor, does not fit. You can see that it overlaps a bit, so you can't fit any panels around it. And also it would look a little bit funny because the wheels are just that much wider than the panels. So the front axle is not driven, it only has steering and it has two shock absorbers over here. So now I'm gonna work on attaching that, and when the the chassis is fully built, I'm gonna test it. So hopefully nothing goes wrong. Well, as you can see, the front axle is now relatively securely attached to the chassis, and everything seems to be working well. There's the suspension and the things we can test without a remote control. And I have also connected the buoys. They just loosely mounted at the moment, and I'm gonna test it, but I'm not gonna show it on camera because I don't want to be bothered to film just that. I'm just gonna tell you how the results went. I really hope it works well, and I hope there are no glitches in the gearbox module in the Boobies app. So after a bit of indoor testing, uh, the gearbox worked fine, I guess. I did not test it under any load whatsoever, I just rode it around for a little bit. But a problem became apparent because in two gears, in first and third gear, the model drove one direction. If the motor was turning the same direction all four gears, in first and third it would drive in one direction, and in second and fourth it would drive the other direction. This is because this shaft and this shaft rotate in the opposite direction when they're motorized. They rotate in the opposite direction. So now I gotta make them rotate in the same direction so that I don't have this issue again. I gotta figure out how to do that without occupying too much space and without being too low duty. Theoretically speaking, I could actually just replace this gear and that gear with 3A-tooth gears, but I really don't want to do that because it's not heavy duty, and it's also not reinforced very well because there is no beam in between these two beams, so there is no place to mount the third A-tooth gear, so that's not an option. In general, I'm just gonna see what I can do and think of a solution. Wish me luck. So after multiple iterations, it became apparent that that the problem is here. I have managed to get it to work, sort of, I guess, but uh, the thing is, these gears crack all the time when I am in fourth gear. They crack all the time. Actually, they only crack when starting, but it's still a very big issue, and I have tried to fix it multiple times. I don't know how to fix it. Maybe I can install another one of these on the other side, but maybe that's not gonna be reliable enough. In general, we will see, but here I will end this episode. I hope you enjoyed watching, and if you did, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video. Uh, without any more boring you with that, bye.